All right, today we're diving deep into a product that, let's be honest, probably ends up in millions of Costco carts. That giant bag of Kirkland Signature cat food. You know the feeling, right? If you're a cat owner, you've stood in that aisle, you've seen that massive bag with that tiny price tag, and you've asked yourself this exact question. So, what's the deal? Is it a premium bargain or is it just, well, cheap? Let's find out. I mean, it's such a familiar scenario for anyone with a Costco card and a cat. You're there for paper towels or something, and you just can't ignore that literal mountain of cat food. The value seems almost too good to be true. And the promise is right there on the bag, simple and clear. Premium quality, warehouse price. But as smart pet owners, we know we have to look past the marketing buzzwords. Our goal today is to unpack what's really going on behind that promise. Okay, so the first and maybe the most important question you have to ask about any store brand is this. Who's actually making the stuff? Who's behind the curtain? Because the answer tells you a whole lot about the quality you're really getting. So, here's the first big piece of the puzzle. It might say Kirkland on the bag, but Costco doesn't have a pet food factory hidden in the back of the store. Nope. Just like with most of their private label stuff, they outsource it. And they don't just hand it off to some small-time operation either. They partner with an absolute giant in the industry, a company with huge reach, tons of experience, and a lot of resources. And that company is Diamond Pet Foods. Now, this is a really key piece of information. See, Diamond is a major player. They make everything from really basic entry-level foods all the way up to super high-end, specialized diets for dozens of other brands. So what does that mean? It means they definitely have the ability to make a quality product, but it also means their name is attached to a whole spectrum of quality. Understanding this context is everything. All right, so knowing the manufacturer is a huge clue, but the real truth? That's always printed on the back of the bag. So let's get into it and decode that ingredient list. When you actually look at the ingredients, it's kind of a mixed bag, which, to be fair, is pretty common at this price. On the good side, you'll often see real meat, like chicken or fish, listed as the #1 ingredient. That's great. They also include good stuff like probiotics and use specific named fat sources, like chicken fat, instead of some vague animal fat. But then you have the questionable side. You might see generic meat meal, which is this rendered product from who knows what kind of animal, and you'll often find potential grain fillers like corn or wheat, which can be an issue for some cats. But this really brings us to the overall consensus. The source for this whole explainer, Purits.com, puts it perfectly. They note that for what you're paying, the ingredient list is surprisingly solid. In fact, it's often a clear step up from most other brands you'd find at a regular grocery store. Okay, so the ingredients are pretty decent for the money, but how does that actually translate into nutrition for your cat? And what about that incredible value we keep coming back to? So if you look at a typical Kirkland dry food formula, the protein level is usually sitting right around 30%. That's a solid number, and it meets the industry standards for an adult cat. The fat's around 20%, which is also good for energy. The carbohydrate level, well, that's where some critics might pipe up, since cats don't really need a lot of carbs. But honestly, a profile like this is super common for dry kibble across the entire market, even the pricey stuff. And here it is, the knockout punch, the price. When you actually break it down and compare the cost per pound, the value is just undeniable. We're talking less than half of what you might pay for a big, premium brand name. If you have more than one cat, wow, those savings add up incredibly fast. So we've looked at who makes it, what's in it, the nutrition, and the price. Let's pull it all together. What's the final verdict here? Where do we actually land on that hidden gem versus cheap filler question? The thing is, there's no simple yes, it's great or no, it's bad answer. Before you just swap the food, you've got to consider a few critical things. First, if your cat has a grain sensitivity, you have to read the specific label you're buying very carefully. Second, and this is a big one, the manufacturer Diamond Pet Foods does have a history of product recalls. Now, this can happen to any large-scale producer, but it's something you have to be aware of. And finally, remember that not all Kirkland formulas are the same. The quality can and does vary between the different recipes. So, this all leads to a practical, step-by-step guide for you. First, think about your own cat's needs. Are they a kitten, a senior, a little chunky? Second, actually compare the labels on the different Kirkland bags in the store. Third, do a quick Google search for any recent recalls from the manufacturer, just to stay informed. And number 4, the most important step, talk to your vet. They are your absolute best resource for your pet's health, period.
At the end of the day, the verdict isn't really about the brand, it's about your cat. Kirkland Signature offers this really interesting, high-value middle ground between the cheap filler foods and the super expensive premium diets. So the question isn't just, is it good food? It's, is it the right food for my cat and for my budget? It's a balance of quality, risk, and price, and you have to decide if that's a compromise you're willing to make.
Now, if you want to go even deeper and see a really detailed analysis of every single Kirkland cat food formula out there, definitely check out the source for this entire explainer over at pureeats.com. Thanks for joining me.